Good morning, one and all. Welcome to the Message Talk Show. This is your host, Alex Gordon, speaking to you from sunny London. You know, sometimes the weather does not hold out in London very well, but today I can say it is sunny London, and it's great to be in London at the moment. I don't know where you're watching from, whether you're in Manchester, Birmingham, America, the West Indies. Good morning, good afternoon. And if you're watching from Australia, because I've got some Australian friends, yeah, I've got some Australian friends. If you're watching from Australia, then it's good night to you because you're the 10-hour difference. Good morning. It's Thursday morning, 11 o'clock. And what do you do on a Thursday morning, 11 o'clock? You tune into the Message Talk Show, the only show that you listen to 11 o'clock on a Thursday morning. So get your cup of coffee, get your cup of tea. Dial your friends, call them now, tell them to get on the show because this is the Message Talk Show. Hey, today I have an amazing guest in the house. You know, I have what I call, he is an ambassador. I've never had an ambassador on the show before, but this gentleman is an ambassador. Now he's just going to come on and tell you hi this morning. Say hi.
Difficulties, haven't we? But yo, that's all on my side. I'm muted now. I'm ready. I'm live. I'm in effect, and we're with Alex today. And I know that today is going to be live. I really do.
Wow, amazing. So, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I have what I say, an ambassador in the house. I've never had an ambassador on the program before. This gentleman is an ambassador. But before we step into the show, I just want to welcome you to the show again today, Thursday morning, 11 o'clock. And I'm telling you, we believe that passionate, mission-centered individuals are the people who are going to bring change to the world. Change does not start from the top. It starts from the bottom up. And we've seen that over the years. We've been in a very, what we call, pandemic situation, very stressful. People are dying, people are losing their lives, demonstrations across the world, people are being aggravated, people have been stirred. But you know what? Until you get up and do something yourself, change is not going to happen. And that's what we're seeing happen across the world now. So if you're a mission-centered, passionate individual, get in contact with the Message Talk Show. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business person, that's what we do. We help you to go from unknown to unforgettable. This time, you have to be unforgettable. People have to remember who you are. You see, we talk about Martin Luther King all the time. We talk about, I have a dream, as though that was the one speech this gentleman ever gave. But it wasn't the only speech he gave. But we remember that I have a dream, and we've quoted it so many times. And he did not start out to be a social activist. No, he didn't. He was a preacher, just preaching his message every week. But Rosa Parks started something when she refused to move. She refused to move, and that sparked action in the States. And from there, they went looking for a speaker. Then they found Martin Luther King, and what? Hey, today's history. What can you spark today? What are you sparking today with what you have? What are you sparking today with what you've got? So before we jump into the show, let's just go to our sponsor.
You are listening to the Message Talk Show and Podcast. Do you believe you have something to share? Do you believe you have something to contribute? Do you have a story to tell the world, to share with your community? Gandhi said, man often becomes what he believes himself to be. If you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. So join us on the Message Talk Show and Podcast with host Alex Gordon.
I said this morning, we have a TEDx speaker. We have a published author. We have a gentleman who, among his accomplishments, said his greatest accomplishment is not the speaking, it's not the book, it's not the programs that he's run. His greatest accomplishment is his family. Good morning, Herman. How are you today, sir?
Hey, I'm good, Alex. I'm here, looking forward to talking to you and just getting deeper into the conversation and discovering more what's going to come from today.
Wow. We over the years, we've heard a lot about mentoring. Talked about mentoring. And sometimes I don't believe we really understand what mentoring is. We talk about it a lot. We associate it with at a very basic level, I think. So
Mm.
my question to you today is, what is the difference between mentoring and coaching? No, but before I go there, something else caught my eye this week. Something else caught my eye, and I have to share this with you. And this is you.
Yes, it surely
It
is.
says, it says, to overcome, I had to turn my pain into power. That got me when I read that. Turn my pain into power. What's the story there, man?
Okay, I mean, what I would do, I mean, I'll answer it in two parts. So I know that there's a great desire to even understand around mentoring and coaching and really just how it all fits and so forth. And I feel there's a lot of understanding to be understood about that. And I feel the reality of it is all of us are not necessarily, we don't need to be called a mentor, but a lot of us are mentors. You know, we're mentors as parents, we're mentors as older siblings, we're mentors as leaders and so forth. And I think that's really important. But I'm really looking forward to us diving in that a bit deeper. Concerning pain to power, I feel it's quite pertinent and it's very important for us to understand that we do have a choice. And in life, a lot of times, it's not about what happens to us; it's about how we respond to it. You know, in life, we're always gonna have the temptation or the choice or the opportunity to become bitter or to become better. And for me, the choice to become better wasn't always the choice I took. You know, when I went through many different difficulties along the path of discovering who I am, discovering my passion, discovering mentoring, discovering myself as a believer, discovering me as a parent, me as a father, me as a husband. A lot of the times I went through a lot of challenges that I felt were unfair, that I felt were unjust, that I felt, why me? And at times I never processed those things in a healthy way. And that really worked against me. And that's where I really focused on my pain. And I felt at times probably sorry for myself, or I never looked at it in a healthy way. But the more that I've grown, the more that I've matured as a person, I have started to see the purpose of pain. And even if you're a person that goes to the gym, or you're a person that does work in a certain way, a lot of times, like the saying goes, no pain, no gain. But a lot of times people think about that when they think about going to the gym or working out. And I realize that for me, I went through a certain season in my life, and this is even linked to the TEDx talk that I did around the joy, the joy of being broken. And for me, I realized that at that point in my life, I had processed my pain in a certain way, and I started to see that there was a greater depth of my speaking, or my mentoring, or my leadership, or when I was sharing with others, because the pain had been processed and it had been it was like a catalyst to go into the next level. So that's when I talk about I turn my pain into power. That's a really surmised version, but that's it.
Wow. You mentioned there several times about discovering yourself. Discovering yourself as a family man, as a believer. What does that discovery process look like?
If only it was straightforward. If only it was a syllabus in a university or
Ah,
anything. I mean, you discover yourself in so many ways. I think a lot of times we don't like to discover ourselves in unfortunate places or in uncomfortable situations. Um, we're much more we desire discovering ourselves in excitement, in success, in our zenith. But the reality of it is we're holistic people, and discovering ourselves mean that you've got to discover the things that you may not accept about yourself, discover the things that you want to change about yourself, discover the things that You celebrate about yourself. So I think some of it around discovering yourself is around acceptance.
Wow.
I think it's accepting, and I think it's being around good people as well. I really believe the people around you add value to you. You know, they encourage you, they bring out the best in you, they provide the kind of challenge that's necessary for you to become who you already are, because you already are that person, but you're going to go through the process, and that process is what helps you to become who you are, and that you manifest that self of who you are. So that's what I would say around discovery. A lot of it's around acceptance, a lot of it's around being cognizant, a lot of it's around being perceptive, and a lot of it's around accepting the things that you don't necessarily like about yourself, so you can go beyond.
Wow. And that statement there, accepting the things that we don't like. We tend to bypass that sometimes. Bypass the things that we don't like, and as you said, go towards the things that we think that everybody wants to hear about, the success stories, things
Mm,
that went well, the things that went well. And that helps to, I think, gratify us in some way, shape, or form. But as you said, the purpose of pain helps. Now, we're living in a
mm,
society right now where pain has been, for the past, what, 4
mm,
pain has been at the center of our daily living.
mm,
And some people are coming through fine. Some people going through grief, going through things that are happening at the same time. How could you console someone going through pain right now in the British economy? Even
I think it's all about how we look at pain. You know, we can't be in denial. Some things are just painful, and sometimes you can't get rid of that pain. It's like you've got to go through that pain. You know, one of the most my favorite creature is the caterpillar, um, because inside of the caterpillar is a butterfly, and for the caterpillar to become that butterfly, it has to go through a certain process. And a part of that process is it becoming liquidized and it being reformed within the chrysalis, within the cocoon, to become the butterfly. So it's almost like the beauty of the caterpillar that's within it, the beauty of the caterpillar, the beauty of the butterfly that's within the caterpillar has to be exposed to a process that isn't probably enjoyable. You know, I don't think being liquidized and being reformed is going to be enjoyable, but there's no way it can become a butterfly without going through that. And I feel a lot of what we go through in pain is us being developed, it's us being tested, us being going through the pressure. Like, you know, people say that, you know, diamonds are, you know, coal that's gone through pressure and has lasted the process. Um, and I feel that for us, it's about looking at what is the meaning in this time. There's things that's beyond our control. I wouldn't even try to focus on things that's beyond your control. And that's where faith comes in. That's where optimism comes in. That's where your disposition is going to either help or hinder you in that process of pain. So I would say some of it is things are being brought to the surface that have already existed. You know, and sometimes our activity can be escapism, sometimes even work or whatever. And the reality of it is now a lot of us have had to address or had to look head on, you know, into some things that we've not necessarily liked, or some things that we've been able to avoid because we've been busy. You know, so if your home situation hasn't been great, you know, but work was a place of escapism, you know, now it's become intense because now that escapism's not here, but it's also an opportunity to address some things, to change some things, to make some decisions that can enable that pain doesn't have to be a pain that lasts for longer than it needs to.
In order to become a butterfly, you have to first be a caterpillar. The process is there's a process that's there for you to change, for you to develop, and you can't avoid it. Now, earlier on, you said that we were mentors. We're all mentors. Mentors in some shape or form. Now, but mentoring is not spoken about as much as coaching. Coaching as a profession has blossomed over the years. What is the difference between mentoring and coaching?
I'd say that there's a few differences. To simplify it, and this is from my perspective, that mentoring is more based around a relationship. It's more based around, it's holistic. It's more about your holistic self. And a lot of times I would say coaching is around a skill. It's around a subject. It's like you've got a tennis coach. The focus predominantly is going to be around tennis, and I would say it's more that you're developing someone's skill set. Do you know what I mean? And a lot of times, even with coaching, the coach may not have necessarily experienced the success, or in that arena and so forth, but they're coaching you to be that successful. I mean, a great example is like Alex Ferguson. As a coach, he wasn't in the Premiership as a baller. He never reached the heights as a footballer, and then went into coaching. He played football for a while, but then he went into coaching. He's one of the most legendary coaches because he learned and knew and discovered and developed how to coach. But a lot of times with mentoring, it's almost like the person has had to have done it. They've already been there, they've experienced it, so now they're sharing their experience, that they've been to this place and they're talking to you about this place. They're talking from their personal perspective, and then you're learning from their story, you're learning from their experience, you're learning from their hindsight. So I feel that those are some of the differences between mentoring and coaching. And I would say with coaching, you're looking to the future, you're coaching around something, you're moving forward. Mentoring can be something that's retrospective, something that's looking back, something around hindsight, and more around the development of a relationship that helps you to glean off someone's hindsight. And that could be, a business mentor, that could be a personal mentor. But there's different types of mentors for different types of things.
Now, you've gone into organizations to help them develop mentoring programs, to help them develop themselves in a mentor capacity. How does organizations take on board mentoring in a way that helps the employees develop rather than coaching?
I'd say mentoring is a very powerful mechanism if you understand what it really is. I feel mentoring is very misunderstood. I feel that it's loosely used, and everyone's a mentor, and because of that, sometimes people don't understand that there are levels to mentoring. There's an art to mentoring. There's a science to mentoring. There's strategic type of mentoring. There's mentoring that achieves different types of objectives, but the heart of mentoring is around developing relationships. And I would say even person-centered relationships. So the reality of it is, whatever business we're in, everyone's in the people business. And if you've got people, they're going to have needs that even go beyond their work. They're going to have needs that they need some support through. They're going to need some mental health support, some well-being support. Some people are, struggling or being challenged around how they navigate the workspace, how they navigate the inequality in the workspace, how they navigate situations that are probably beyond their years. And when you start to create mentoring relationships within the workplace, you can start to circumvent some issues. You can start to provide the opportunities for people to learn what their experience hasn't given them as of yet. And that's what the phrase I coin around mentoring is that a mentor's hindsight becomes a mentee's foresight. And I believe the reality of it is in an organization, when you create mentoring, you're creating opportunities to develop the talent pipeline. You're creating opportunities for your people to experience accelerated wisdom, accelerated growth. You're creating opportunities for your people to have better mental health because they've got places and forums that they can share how they feel, how they think. You're helping your organizations to be promoted, your employees to be promoted, because they would be able to accelerate and have greater accountability with someone that's helping them to move forward in their career. So there's so many different things. A lot of organizations use mentoring for CSR. That's kind of an easy fit when you say some of your people will go and do mentoring in a community or mentor young people. But for me, the way that I'm developing organizations and helping organizations to think around mentoring, it's around how they develop their people to have greater empathy, greater emotional intelligence, that they become better leaders, that they are then able to utilize that skill set in the community. And then that can bring around brand awareness, brand loyalty. It can give them a competitive advantage. It can then be something that can be utilized internally, so staff members can mentor each other. Then those staff members, once they've got the skill set, they can even mentor their children and they can support people. So there's different things that people can do once you've got the skills of mentoring and utilize the skill set within an organization or within a community.
After spending nearly 6 months, 6 months out of the workplace, and people are now returning to work, to the work environment now, and you said
Mm.
mentoring about building relationships. How would you say to organizations now? Sorry, what should organizations be doing now, bringing people back into work as a key
Mm.
to developing relationships?
Um, I, I believe it's really about getting to know your people. Um, and that can be difficult. And that's why mentoring is a powerful mechanism, especially when it's structured, it's strategic, and it's managed well. Because you can glean so much about people because people are being mentored and they've got the opportunity to share what they're thinking. And what I would say is because of what's happened and just the widespread transformation of life, some people, even more than others, but I'd say most people are going to need safe spaces where they can share. They're going to need safe spaces to be able to express what they're going through. And I would say even managers and leaders would benefit from having mentor training, to be trained as mentors, to become more skilled at mentoring, because they're going to be managing a different type of workforce. They're going to be managing people that are in different places in their lives, people that have got children and their children are going through different issues. People are going to need to be much more emotionally intelligent, and mentoring helps to develop that and helps to develop empathy and helps to develop perceptivity and so forth. So I would say being able to create um, opportunities for people to speak. Those forums can be one to one, one to few, or one to many, or when they're speaking to their managers or leaders, to be able to have more broader conversations. And that's the whole thing around mentoring looks at the broader aspect. It's not just focusing on the employee as an employee, it's focusing on creating an opportunity for them to share. And some of the things that are hindering their performance at work may be personal. It may be attitudinal, maybe mental, maybe whatever. So it all depends.
Employers are going back to work now, focusing on rebuilding their business, the bottom line, profit needs to come in, money needs to start coming in, work needs to get done. Why is it so important for staffing to have a safe place to express themselves at work?
I mean, it's key because, as I said at the start of our talk, it don't matter what business you're in. You're in the people business, unless you've got your work that's automated and it's machines that's delivering your work. You've got people that are delivering your work. So if your people are not well, your people are not doing good personally, that's going to impact their work professionally. You know, you can separate it to some extent, but when you start speaking about the kind of experiences that a lot of people have gone through as a society, it's not like it's just one person. You know, it's not like just there's one person or two people or few people that haven't been able to manage their lives correctly and really, like you say, you're a professional, you know, compartmentalize your life, leave that at the door. It's we're talking about it's everyone that's gone through the same thing, and that is a different dynamic. And it's almost like organizations need to become much more conscientious, much more thoughtful around how they support their people holistically, because one of the biggest challenge for a lot of workplaces are going to be if they don't take care of their people and their people are not able to manage their stress levels or manage their mental health, you'll start getting people missing days, you know, people not being able to turn up at work, getting signed off. um, and that would be a massive issue for the workplace, because then you'll have to go through compliance and go through procedure, and that, you know, so it's almost like organizations and people need to become much more proactive and preventative in their thinking instead of waiting for things to happen.
You mentioned earlier emotional intelligence, and sometimes sometimes we hear these buzzwords around us all the time, emotional intelligence, and we think, yeah, and companies tick off the box. We've got that going on in the company. But as you said, we're dealing with people and their emotions. And so by dealing with their the emotional side, why do we think that coming out of COVID-19, emotional intelligence should be on the top of the leadership development platform?
Hmm. Because society at present now is much more needy. You know, it's a different landscape. The landscape is different, not just you know, socially or economically. It's you know, family, personally, spiritually, you know, mentally. It's everything. You know, it's so different. And the biggest things that really impact people is, you know, mental, spiritual, emotional. It's them as a person. You know, because they're people first. We are all people first and professional second. And I feel that there's a big shift in people are having to address their identity as well. Because if work is something that has given you the sense of meaning of who you are, and all of a sudden you're not at work, then it's easy to think, who are you? You know, and it can impact your self-esteem and impact your sense of self and all that kind of stuff. And all that stuff impacts work, it impacts relationships. You know, relationships will impact work. So it's just all connected.
So
And
if work has been your source of identity, and all of a sudden you've been pulled back from work, you've been yanked out of that position, you believe that really affects the way you feel about yourself?
well, it would, wouldn't it? You know, if your work is what gives you confidence, or your work is what gives you a sense of this is who you are, and that makes you feel relevant, that makes you feel like you belong, or your work environment is more healthy than your home environment, um, then that would impact you as a person. It would.
This is amazing. I mean, we have gone so deep with this on that emotional intelligence level, because I remember speaking to Dr. Rochelle Carr, and she was talking about this as well, about the shift in organizations to dealing with people on this level. But I never really thought that mentoring kind of connects it all. And it seems like mentoring is the grit that connects all these elements. And not
Mhm. Well, it's definitely, yeah, I would say it's the I would say it's the mortar. It's definitely, it's the mortar um, that connects a lot of things. But this is because I mean, the way that I look at mentoring, I don't just look at it as mentee mentor, as my professional vocation for close to 2 decades now. I've looked at mentoring in a strategic way, developing frameworks, developing programs, developing processes, developing success metrics, developing mechanisms that enable you to quantify the impact of mentoring, helping organizations to link mentoring to their strategic objectives, their strategic development objectives, their leadership objectives, their organizational improvement objectives. So for me, the way that I view mentoring is very different. And a lot of people that look at mentoring, or organizations that look at mentoring, they look at it in a very loose way. A lot of times, when I speak to leaders, I'm speaking to organizations that are global. I'm speaking to people at partner level, CEO level, founder level, that are talking around mentoring, and talking around they want their mentoring to be more effective, or they want it to be more professional, or they want it to reflect the prestige of their brand. That's when you have to start looking at mentoring in a totally different way, because it needs to be systematized, needs to be standardized, needs to be communicated well. It needs to, people need to be trained and so forth. So when I'm thinking about mentoring, it's around all of those different aspects of how you utilize mentoring to improve organizations. But I never ever lose sight that the center of mentoring is people, and it's making sure that people are the center, and people are the beneficiaries. The mentors and mentees both glean so much from the experience, and it accelerates their development, it accelerates their insight, it accelerates their wisdom, it accelerates their progress. It's just it's the secret weapon. Mentoring, people don't get it. And I've, for years I've been speaking to people and leaders, and I've been very fortunate, to tell the truth, because I'm speaking at leadership level to a lot of people in a lot of different organizations, because I believe if you are going to transform organizational cultures, it starts from leadership, and it has to be cascaded down. So that's how I've worked for years. So a lot of times I've been able to influence leaders and to give them the broader understanding of what their mentoring provision could achieve. But definitely mentoring enables people to become much more effective emotionally, because the questions a lot of times that people are asked, it's got to do with emotional intelligence, or when people are sharing where they are or how they feel, and you've got a good perceptive mentor, they're going to ask questions, and you're going to have to dig deeper, and you quickly realize your flaws, you quickly realize your ceilings, your limitations, when you realize you don't have answers to some of these questions, because you haven't reflected on these questions, or you haven't really had these questions enough in your life. So I feel it's a mixture of two things. It's got to be strategic if it's being delivered in organizations, but then it's always got to be person centered.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, you're on the Message Talk Show. I don't know if you're just joining us. You're on the Message Talk Show, and we're talking to Herman Stewart about how to recognize the value of a mentor. And he's showing us and opening up to us how mentoring can help organizations rebuild during the pandemic, and after the season of people being away from home, going back into the office. And he's talking about putting structure and systemizing the whole process of mentoring. But what I'm worried about there is that because we're dealing with people and we put a system in place, is it sometimes just become a tick box exercise?
Well, it depends, in it. It depends if your system is there for tokenism, or if it's there for orchestration. Order is important. If you're in an organization, I mean, it's in the word, isn't it? It says organization. So if you're delivering mentoring in an organization, it would benefit from being organized. Plus, if there's no system in place, you can't, or you will find it extremely difficult to be able to identify the return on investment. It'd be very difficult to identify the impact of your program. And that's why I create systems. It's more around being able to create frameworks. I think framework is an even better word. It's about having a framework that everyone that's involved in the mentoring program process, they understand their part in it. Framework is as simple as knowing how do you get onto the program, how do you recruit your mentors, the frequency of your sessions, when do you evaluate. It's all those things that are necessary if you want to have a program that is exceptional, if you want to have a program that's effective, and if you want to have a program that's efficient and one that is able to justify your return on investment, because investment isn't just a monetary issue. Investment is always a time issue as well, because mentors have to take the time out to mentor and mentees have to take the time out to be mentored. So you've got to be able to justify all of those things, and by doing that you see the great benefits of delivering mentoring at that level.
That's amazing. Let me take this back to the mentor, because there's a question here coming from the public. And the question is, what sustains the mentor to be consistently giving?
What sustains a mentor to be consistently giving? I would say for you to consistently be nourished, for you to consistently be replenished, for you to be consistently mentored, supported, guided, you to receive that as well. And I feel a lot of times people are mentoring and they may not necessarily know how best to mentor. Sometimes mentors are not trained. As I said, we're all mentors. I'm not naive to the fact that not everyone that is a mentor has to be trained to be a mentor. There's a lot of mentoring happening, and sometimes your mentor isn't, you don't even call them your mentor, but you're being mentored. Parents are mentors. Cub Scout leaders are mentors. People that work in faith groups, community centers are mentors. But when you start having to evidence and qualify your effectiveness as a mentor, that's when you start bringing it into a realm where it's professional mentoring. Yeah. So I would say if you're a mentor and you're doing it and it's your profession, I would say you need to continually be replenished anyway. And whether you're doing it within the community, wherever you're doing it, wherever, because the reality of it is you can't give what you don't have, you can't give what you don't possess. So you've got to have it first to be able to give someone.
You can't give what you don't possess. That is so true. You've got to have it first in order to give it out to someone. So what have been some of your success stories? Mentor's mentor, as you're described.
I've got quite a few. I mean, I'll name. There's one I'm really proud of. There's two actually. There's a few actually. But there's mentees of mine who I mentored when they were like 14. That I now speak to and they're in their 30s. And one is a leader in a school. One became a teacher and then chose to do something else. He's an engineer now. And these young people, well, they're now adults. They've got their own homes. They've got their relationships. They've got children. And when I speak to them now, and I get them to come and speak to audiences, that want to see evidence or see the benefit of mentoring. And I've spoken at a global organization and brought some of them to talk. I've spoken at local authority, and they just really testify of the transformation that mentoring done in their lives and how it really helped them to change how they thought. Because if they didn't change how they thought, they wouldn't be where they are now, and they attribute some of their success especially when they were younger, just the guiding them onto certain paths, that the mentoring that I provided for them was life changing. You know, if you go on our website, everychildneedsamentor.com, on the impact page, there's lots of testimonies, and at the bottom there's a story of the mentee I'm talking about. His name's Warren. So there's some of our successes. I mean, but I've spoken, because of the work that I do. I've spoken to seen a politician. I've been Dubai, spoken to, been in government politics, what you call it, consultations. Had my work in a white paper, recommendation. Spent time at Windsor Castle. Spent the night at the Queen's residence, because of my work. So in a sense, I've really brought mentoring to a new place. And as I said, I'm speaking to and these are things that I probably take for granted, but I'm speaking to like partners in law firms and leaders in professional services and across different organizations around mentoring, on the merit of what I've done and the fact that my name is synonymous with mentoring.
That's amazing. Now, my question here is, what national impact do you think mentors can have in our community? You've just gone global there.
Well, and you see, this is, and I say this to even to community-led organizations. I say this to faith-led organizations. I say this to all different types of organizations. Put effort into make your operation professional, because the impact is based on organization. And when you start speaking about mentoring different cohorts, different stakeholders, different people, you have to make sure that you're doing your P's and Q's, because you got adults mentoring children. That's a safeguard issue straight away. And I feel a lot of times people are not even training their people to mentor. And I feel that a lot of times the impact that organizations could have, or communities could have, is not as it could be, because the lack of the professional aspect of it. So when you're thinking about getting professionals to become mentors in the community, the reason why a lot of mentors drop out of mentoring programs is because they're ad hoc, they're not predictable, they're not standardized. When you've got professional people that are used to professional culture, they expect to be trained, or they expect to have a booklet, or they expect to have some kind of supervision. They expect, and too many people are just left to do mentoring. And I feel that that's why a lot of community organizations or communities, or even nationally, have not benefited. And even big charities, I'm not even just talking, it's not just community organizations. I've spoken to people from in big national organizations as well, and we're having a conversation about how they could make their mentoring much more structured and professional. So it's just making sure that you've put that in place as much as you can, and seek guidance, seek wisdom, seek training, seek a lot of things, and have leadership of your provision.
That word you used earlier, framework, that seems to be the key here.
Mm-hmm.
A framework in place that can be measured.
Yes.
But if you don't think like that, if you don't operate, if the basis on which you've been operating does not come from that kind of understanding, and you've kind of just, when you've done something ad hoc and it survived and it had some results, how then do you shift someone who works in an ad hoc kind of way to then say, let's bring a framework in place and work in a more structured way? How do you shift someone to do that?
Well, you can't really shift people. They've got to have you've got to have a desire. The reality of it is, You don't know what you don't know in it. If you don't know, then that is it's okay. But when you then find out that there's more, then that links into like someone's personal culture or an organizational culture. I feel if you have an organizational culture that you want to be exemplary or you want to do well by people or you do want to do good, you're going to probably see, okay, there's a better way to do it. Okay, you're interested in that, you know. Um, if you're a mentor and you discover there's a better way to do mentoring, you're probably going to want to do that. So it's very important for people to understand that when you're doing mentoring, and I feel that this is so important. I've worked, in charities, in public sector, and private sector, um, across the board, and m- structure is important. It's just important. It's important for those that are being mentored. It's important for those that are doing the mentoring because it encourages consistency, it encourages transparency, it encourages accountability, it encourages quality. And that's why it just makes sense to invest the time. And there's times you then have to do the investment of finance to put something in place that reflects professionalism. But it's always remembering, and I feel it's important for us to go back to this place, is that it is for the recipients, it's for the beneficiaries. So more professional the structure is the more those children that need to be mentored or those young adults or whatever, they get a better service.
They get a better service.
Yeah.
The framework that's been put in place. Herman, time is upon us. If there was a sentence, well, let's not say paragraph, let's not say chapter, if there was a sentence that you could give to the community right now about mentoring, what would that be?
Do mentoring properly, because mentoring is about legacy.
Mentoring is about legacy. Now, I never tied mentoring into legacy. Mentoring is about legacy. After you've gone. Wow. Herman, thank you so much for talking to you today. Time's upon us right now. And we've enjoyed this conversation so much. It's time disappeared. But there was one more question I wanted to ask you, and we didn't talk about it. You're an author. You're a published author. What's the book called?
The book is called Every Child Needs a Mentor, and I would advise any aspirant mentor or anyone that wants to understand mentoring structure or programs or so forth to get that book. I feel it's to be able to spend so much time to write a book and pour one's life in to make sure that you can get the message, and you can buy that for £15, or less. That is like it's a no-brainer. So yeah, Every Child Needs a Mentor. I'd say even go to the website everychildneedsamentor.com, and that would show you a lot around mentoring as well.
Every child needs a mentor. That is so true. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening today to myself and Herman Stewart talking about recognizing mentorship, mentoring. Mentoring is about legacy. Mentoring is about putting a framework in place. And mentoring benefits the recipient. So it means that when you're putting these things in place, you have to understand the people who are receiving it, it has to be structured so they can receive it in a very practical, monitored, measured. Organizations want to bring change. Individuals want to bring change. And according to Herman, mentoring is the key. Am I correct, Herman?
I would say it's definitely when you've got a key ring, it's definitely one of the keys, and it's an important one. Definitely.
It's an important key. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into the Message Talk Show. Join us on Thursday, 11 o'clock, while I go to my sponsor now to say goodbye to you all.
You are listening to the Message Talk Show and Podcast. Do you believe you have something to share? Do you believe you have something to contribute? Do you have a story to tell the world, to share with your community? Gandhi said, man often becomes what he believes himself to be. If you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. So join us on the Message Talk Show and Podcast with host Alex Gordon.
Tune in on Thursday, 11 o'clock, the Message Talk Show. You can't miss the show. You got to be on the show. Don't miss this, guys. Don't miss this. Don't miss this. Get your cup of tea. Get everything in place and get on the show. Call your friends. Call your friends. Speak. Get on the phone. Ring them. Email them. Get your coffee. Get your breakfast in place. And get on the show. The Message Talk Show with Alex Gordon. I'll see you soon.